Let me start with a couple of questions. How many of your current organizations are either investing on Industry 4.0 technologies or you're planning to do so in the next 1 year? If I could see show of hands. Majority of you. You know, Gartner did a survey of CEOs this year where 82% of the CEOs surveyed said digital transformation is one of their key strategic initiatives this year. 82% of the CEOs. This number last year was 62%. So you can see even within a matter of year, there's a significant amount of increase in excitement towards digital transformation and Industry 4.0. That leads me to my second question. How many of you have a commitment from your CEO or from your board that these digital transformation projects that you are driving, you don't have to run them through the investment council of your organization? That means they're so critical to the success of your business that they have given you a pool of money to go and tap into and run those projects. If I could see show of hands for that. All right, only one. By the way, I would like to talk to you after the meeting. But the point I'm trying to make here is that even though we all understand the importance of digital transformation, we all understand how critical it is for the success of our business, it is still expected that we run these projects through the investment council. That means you still have to prove the cost-benefit analysis. That means you still have to show that it meets the return on investment criteria and the payback period for your business. The unfortunate part is most of these digital transformation projects do take some time to show the return on investment. So what I'd like to do today is walk you through some of the use cases in supply chain that hopefully will give you a little bit quicker return on investment, as well as try to help you lay out a digital transformation framework for your organization that you can build your strategy on. And today, when I'm talking about supply chain, I'm not just talking about logistics. I'm not just talking about sourcing. That old way of thinking of supply chain doesn't exist no more. Supply chain is truly, as we move forward, as an end-to-end function. Because in the world of e-commerce, that is where we are heading to. When you look at digital transformation end-to-end, the benefit that you can have is significantly greater than if you would implement the same solutions, each function by function. Let me give you an example. Domino's Pizza. You know, the first time when I tried Domino's Pizza was 1998. And after I tried it the first time, up until a couple of years ago, I never tried it ever again. I thought it was the worst tasting pizza I have ever had. And it's not just me. Their CEO came into TV and actually put in an ad where he said, let me get this one right, that their crust tasted like cardboard and their sauce tasted like ketchup. It's their CEO. Do you know what was the stock price for Domino's Pizza in 1998? It was $3 a share. When the market closed in New York Stock Exchange on Friday, do you know what was Domino's Pizza's stock price? $281.41. $281.41. I bet you and I were not thinking about pizza when we were investing in 98, were we? We were thinking about Microsoft. We were thinking about Apple. And we didn't know what to think of a small company out of Seattle named Amazon because we couldn't figure out where it's going to go. But let's think about this. What do you think they did right? Obviously, they changed the sauce. They brought in a focus group. They changed the cheese. All the ingredients they changed. But come on, at the end of the day, it's still a pizza, right? Just by making good pizza, you can't have that much of a turnaround. Here's what they did well. They digitized their entire supply operation. They digitized their internal processes. And there's one more thing they started doing. They started using technology to rebrand themselves. They started using technology to make people think differently about what they have thought about buying pizza earlier. That's a big change, right? And we'll talk more about it as we go on. But before I go too far, let me quickly cover a little bit about my background. I think Mike did very well to cover most of it. But I started out my career in the consulting environment. I spent about 3 to 4 years focusing on advanced analytics, primarily in the insurance and the financial industries. From there on, I went to work for Sprint Telecommunications for about 5 years with various technologies. From there, I went to work for General Electric or GE for 13 years. I spent my time in 3 GE businesses mostly: GE Transportation, GE Power and Water, and GE Energy. For the last 6 years, my team helped develop the digital industrial strategy, as well a strategy named as Brilliant Factories for one of the GE businesses. For the last couple of years, I spent my time building digital transformation framework for all the internal factories in ABB. I also helped develop digital services for their customers as well. For us to talk about fourth industrial revolution, I think we need to look at the history of industrial revolution a bit. The history of industrial revolution started with the invention of steam power. From there on, we went on to invent electricity. From there, in the 50s and 60s, we moved into third industrial revolution, which was automation. We are now into fourth industrial revolution, which is focused towards artificial intelligence or AI. Now, the difference between third industrial revolution and the fourth industrial revolution is that in the third industrial revolution, your automation was more programmed automation. With that, what I mean is that if you wanted a machine to do something, you would program and configure that machine to do that. Now, if there was a change in the process, you would have to reconfigure that machine and reprogram it to have that machine do something different. But in the fourth industrial revolution, we are expecting these machines to learn from their experiences. We are expecting that they know what has happened in the past and they can adjust all by themselves without having to program them all over again. So what has really happened over this fourth industrial revolution, if you think about it, is a transformation. It's a transformation of how human engages with machine. Whereas in the early part of the revolution, it was more of human muscle power that was getting the work done. In the fourth industrial revolution, it is more of the cognitive power of both human as well as artificial intelligent robots. It doesn't really matter. You talk about supply chain or you talk about any other function. For you to improve in that particular functional area, you're really looking at 3 different areas of opportunity: systems, processes, and people. Let's talk about system for a while. When you take a system or a machine and you add sensors to it with an expectation for you to collect data from it so that that machine is smarter and more autonomous, what you're really talking about is a connected system. IIoT, or Industrial Internet of Things, that particular technology can apply in this particular space. Let's talk about human being. When you take a human being and you provide them with various accessories that provide that human being with some information that will make them more capable and more efficient, what you're talking about is a connected people. Augmented reality or AR and virtual reality or VR, those technologies can play in that particular space. Now, if you take that connected system and you put it into a factory where these connected people are working along with various other systems, what you're really getting into is a connected process. So what Industry 4.0 is really about is that it's a vertically and horizontally connected digital thread among systems, processes, and people. So why is Industry 4.0 so important, and why now? If you look at the chart on the bottom top left, what you are really looking at is a Purchasing Manager Index, or PMI, for the last few months. Now, what Purchasing Manager Index really tells you is what does the current manufacturing environment look like. If the PMI value is going down, that means your manufacturing environment is contracting. If the PMI value is going up, that means your manufacturing environment is expanding. So if you look at the PMI value for the last few months, in fact, from the beginning of the year, what you're going to see is that the PMI value has been gradually going down month over month. That means more than likely we are moving into a contraction phase as far as manufacturing environment is concerned. That is consistent with the revenue projection that you see from the manufacturers. If you look at the chart on the top right, what you are seeing is the manufacturers are projecting that the revenue projection in the manufacturing sector is going to probably go down over the next few years, whereas it has gone up in the last few. But if you look at the chart on the bottom left, what you are going to see is that the manufacturers are expecting the profitability to remain the same. So if your revenue projection is expected to go down, but you are trying to remain at the same profitability level, in fact, it goes up slightly bit, that means you need some ways to cut cost, other than the traditional sources that you have seen in the past. And that is where the digital transformation and digital solution really come into play. And that is consistent with the chart you see on the bottom right, where manufacturers are expected to invest a huge amount of CapEx dollars over the next few years on these digital solutions to make up for that cash loss. Let's look at some of the threats and opportunities in the supply chain environment. The first one we kind of touched on already, right? If your revenue projection is expected to go down, but you're trying to remain in the same profitability level, that means you need to cut costs for you to stay competitive. There's also a need for increased agility within the supply chain environment. More and more consumers are expecting that when there is a new trend out there in the market, that they get hold of that product immediately. They don't want to wait for months and years. They want that product now. Zara, for example, and I was talking about it earlier, they can move their critical clothing line, at least for the critical clothing line, from the design board all the way to the stores in 15 days. Most of their competitors, it takes months, if not years. There's also a situation where consumers are expecting that the product that they are buying, those products are more original. They want to differentiate their products from the products that their neighbors are buying and their coworkers are buying. And this need for mass customization will continue to increase in the supply chain environment as we go on. And the last one is the productivity in the supply chain environment for the past few years have been falling. I don't know if you noticed it or not. The last decade, the average productivity in the supply chain environment was 4%. This decade, it is at 1%. So decrease in productivity is definitely one of the areas for concern in the supply chain environment. Let's quickly look at some of the challenges that we are facing in the manufacturing environment as well. The first one is there's definitely a shift in consumer patterns. More and more consumers are expecting that the products that they are buying, those products are coming with the features that they would want. They don't want manufacturers to build products that the manufacturers believe that the customer wants. Think about it. That's a big difference. That's a difference between how the manufacturing has been done in the past, where manufacturers chose what product and functionalities you are going to have, versus where manufacturing is going into the future, where each individual customer is selecting the product and the specific functionalities that they would like to have. Once again, the concept of lot of one. That will continue to be a focus. There's obviously a lot more regulation nowadays. The infrastructure in the manufacturing environment also is aging, and more consumers are expecting that the manufacturers do a lot more to keep environment clean than what they have in the past. And the last one is probably the most critical of it all. The average age of the people in manufacturing has been increasing for the last few years. That means we don't have enough younger folks joining the manufacturing sector anymore. And even those who are joining, they are not joining with the right level of skill set that you need for the factories of the future. And that is where the robotics, the artificial intelligence are going to play such a vital role in the manufacturing sector into the future. It feels like we hear of new technologies in the supply chain sector on an everyday basis. But it doesn't really matter which technology it is. You really kind of go through a 4-step process to evaluate it, right? You look at the potential impact of the technology, you look at the degree of maturity that the technology is bringing, the market dynamics, and above all, how the technology will fit within your organization. And once you have done that analysis, you look at the roadmap and strategic planning for the execution of that technology within your organization. Gartner suggests that there are 8 technology areas that will be extremely critical in supply chain environment in the next decade. And those are the ones you're seeing on the right-hand side of the slide. So what I'd like to do now is walk you through some of these technologies, along with, more importantly, some of the use cases in supply chain where these technologies will fit in. There are 2 concepts that will radically change the future of supply chain operations. One of them is digital design, or the concept of digital twin, and the other one is artificial intelligence driven by machine learning. I know I will touch on artificial intelligence very shortly, so I'm going to skip that one for now. But those of you who may not know what digital twin is all about, let me quickly give you an example. This phone that you're seeing in my hand, for this phone to come into my hand, at the minimum, the following steps had to happen. Now, I'm going to simplify the manufacturing process extremely. Manufacturing is not as simple as I will make it sound like, but for the sake of this example, let's just follow through this simplistic process. For this phone to come in my hand, an engineer had to design this phone. Once he finished it, he or she, it came into manufacturing where a prototype had to be built. For that prototype to build, somebody in sourcing had to place an order for multiple parts to multiple different suppliers, each one of them with various lead times, if I may say so. Once those parts came in, a new prototype was built. That prototype went to testing, and during the testing process where they are looking at the functionality of the phone as well as how this phone will operate under different environmental conditions, they, let's say, found some defects. When they found those defects went back to engineering. An engineer had to redesign the phone, probably added some new parts, probably dropped a few parts. Once he was done designing, it went back again to manufacturing, where a new prototype had to be built. And once that new prototype had to be built, went through the same process, went to sourcing, sourcing placed an order for those new parts, the parts came in, new prototype built, it went back again to testing. This iterative process that I just went through goes on a few times, and at some point, the phone is finally certified to be ready for mass production. And once it is ready, only then the phone comes to the customers. Now, what if that the parts that went into building this phone You had all the detailed information related to the parts much earlier into the process. You could build a digital twin of this product, and you could test the functionality as well as how this phone would operate under different environmental conditions by changing the parameters much earlier into the process, well before you even build the prototype. That would reduce your lead time significantly in the supply chain process. That will also reduce the cost of your manufacturing. Now, this digital twin is not only for products. You can use the digital twin concept even for your shop floor. You could lay out, configure your shop floor digitally. You could test it digitally, and you could even commission your line virtually before even you buy a single product into your shop floor. Once again, that would significantly reduce for you to get your line up and working, as well as reduce cost of your manufacturing. In your supply chain and manufacturing operation, there are obviously a lot of machines and equipments, and when those machines go down, well, that's a problem, right? Your production is down. What if you could add sensors to those machines so that when the machine goes down, you know why they're going down, so that into the future, you can set up triggering event to do the maintenance on those machines well before they go down. You can do the maintenance as an unplanned downtime event instead of, you can do it as a planned downtime event, then have to manage it as an unplanned downtime event. Use of robots in supply chain is nothing new, believe it or not. It has been done since 80s and 90s. What is new, though, however, is how we are using these robots. More and more, we are using these robots to do highly complex and non-repetitive type of tasks. With the help of artificial intelligence, these robots, once again, are becoming smarter, and they're learning from their experiences, and they're acting more and more like humans. ABB, for example, has a robot named Yumi. It's a collaborative robot, and with the help of sensors and cameras, it can recognize the change in the shape and the form of the part that is in front of it and do something different of what needs to be done. It is becoming more and more artificially intelligent. Now, this use of robots is not only for just shop floor. You can use software robots for you to increase efficiency in your back office operation as well. Supply chain, finance, with a technology named robotic process automation, or RPA. The use of machine learning is not only just to make your robot smarter. You can use machine learning to improve your other supply chain processes, including your material planning and forecasting. There are packaged software available in artificial intelligence that would make your forecasting process much more efficient than what it is today. PepsiCo, for example, uses demand sensing and machine learning for them to give a better visibility of their distribution network. I know Johnson & Johnson are beginning to work on that one as well. The use of additive technology primarily has been to build prototypes. Well, that definitely helps you with your lead time in your manufacturing process. But the true benefit of additive technology is when you can use this technology to replace your subassembly, or to have you build new components, or build tools that will help you build the subassembly and components. Because in that case, you can significantly reduce your lead time in your supply chain operation, as well as reduce cost in the supply chain operation as well. Digitally integrated supply chain is critical for you to improve lead time as well as improve quality in your supply chain operation. And this digitally integrated supply chain, along with additive technology, is critical to make your production process more modular. Modular production process, as well as a concept known as factory in a box, where your actual factory operation is actually in a container. and it can move from one place to another. These two concepts will be critical for you to meet one of the customer requirements we talked about earlier, which is mass customization. So those two areas you need to put some focus on as you go on. As far as the modular production capability is concerned, Nestle Nutrition has fast development module and self-containing manufacturing pod that they can deploy in one of their new markets. And I know they are doing quite good at that. The need for traceability of your raw materials in supply chain was always there, right? But with more and more focus towards consumer safety, as well as consumer awareness of what is going on in your products, the need for traceability is even greater today than what it was in the past. With the help of blockchain, you can bring all of your suppliers into one network and get a better visibility of your suppliers. Walmart, for example, has 50 plus blockchain patents pending, Walmart, out there. Those patents range all the way from tracing shipments all the way down to drone management. They are also working with IBM on IBM's Food Trust Consortium, as well as Pharmaceutical Consortium. We talked about connected people, connected processes, right? So it's not hard to imagine why would you need to spend time on cybersecurity. Even though it may not give you a quicker return on investment, that will be critical for your future operation. Energy management. Most of your supply chain operation, as well as in manufacturing, you have a lot of energy infrastructure. If you can add sensors to those energy infrastructure, you could understand the utilization of your energy, right? And if you could understand the utilization of your energy, you could make that energy utilization much more efficient and reduce cost from your supply chain operations. All of these technologies that I just talked through and the use cases, all they are really trying to do is move you more towards autonomy, right? Instead of one operator a long time ago who used to probably look at 10, 20 dials, trying to understand what that dial is trying to tell him or her so that he can take actions, right now he's having to deal with hundreds and thousands of data points, something a human being just cannot do. And that is where the artificial intelligence can come in to take away all those complexities. Let's talk about quickly the strategy framework that you follow or you can follow for your Industry 4.0. Now, each one of your strategy obviously has to be different based on your organization, but I like to give you a framework that you can build your strategy on. First of all, you need to do an industry assessment. Do a SWOT analysis. Get a gauge on strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for your organization. You also need to understand, from an Industry 4.0 standpoint, do you need to optimize your business model, or do you need to radically transform your business model with a whole new sets of products and services? You also need to understand from a leadership standpoint, for you to execute these digital projects, what building blocks do you need to implement at leadership, teams, and individual level? And I put some of those building blocks out there in the slide. I'm not going to go through all of them because of the time. You also need to then pick out 3 projects that you think will give you the quickest return on investment. Because if you can show return on investment quickly, there's a good chance you will get funding to do the remaining projects. And in supply chain environment, I would recommend you look into RPA as well as the package artificial intelligence solution that will help you improve your forecasting process, because those two can give you very quick return on investment and once again show you the benefit, show your organization the benefit for you to go and invest for other things. Resources. As I talked about, there's a very limited skill set out there in these new technology areas. So you probably have to depend on some of the technology service providers. But you also need to build your team. So you do need to hire people, probably train them, and over time you have to change the mix more towards go to our full-time employees and taking the dependency away from the contractors. Data strategy and governance. It is not hard to imagine how critical data is on most of these projects, right? They are extremely critical for you to get the correct data. So you do need a proper data strategy and governance for your organization. Once you have done all of these, you're still left with quite a few positive ROI projects, right? But you can't execute all of them in one go. So what you need to do is to lay out those projects based on the business criteria that you believe that your organization would depend on, right? And you probably have to lay them out based on competitive landscape, opportunities, threats, but whatever your business criteria is, you need to lay those ones out. As I come close to the end of my presentation, I like to go back to the question I started out with. It's very unlikely any CEO or any board is going to give you a pool of money and say, hey, go out there and execute Industry 4.0 projects. But as you saw, I gave you some examples of different companies. The companies are finding ways to prove the benefits, and they are building the competitive advantage for their organization. Now you may say, hey, Ranjan, look, all my company really does is build components that goes into sub-assembly factories or components that goes into another company that builds the final product. So as far as Industry 4.0 is concerned, it's not that critical for us. I will argue that regardless of which industry you are in, which product you are building, you will have an impact of Industry 4.0 either directly or indirectly in the near future. Let me give you an example to illustrate my point. Autonomous vehicles. All of you have heard about it. In fact, some of you are probably driving it in the form of Tesla today. When more and more auto companies invest in autonomous vehicles, can you imagine the impact it is going to have on ride-sharing services? All of these autonomous cars will be driving around the city very efficiently. So whenever you need a car, all you have to do is to request for it. The car will come and pick you up, take you to your destination. No drivers required. And if there are no drivers in those cars, you can expect the cost of the ride-sharing services are going to be significantly cheaper, right? So if the cost of these ride-sharing services are cheap, and these cars are driving around the city very efficiently, so whenever you need a car, you can get them, can you tell me why would you ever need to buy a car for yourself? At least I can tell you for myself, I don't need to buy a car. I don't need to worry about insurance. I don't need to worry about maintenance. And I sure can think of a lot better things I could be doing with the 3-car garage I have in my house. So if you're not going to buy a car for yourself, and all of these cars, once again, driving around the city very efficiently, where they rarely come to a full stop, unless obviously they're picking you up, can you please tell me why would we need hundreds and thousands of parking spots we have all the way around the city? In fact, if you go to any large city today, you are more likely going to see a lot more parking spots than residential areas. The point I'm trying to make here is that a change, a digital change, an autonomous change on the car industry has a significant impact on the services industry and has an even greater impact on the real estate market. So it is not only important for you to understand how you can use these Industry 4.0 solutions to improve your process in the manufacturing and supply chain area. It is not only important for you to understand how you can generate more revenue with the new digital products and services, but it is also important for you to understand how a change in any industry out there can impact your industry. Industries that have no relationship to your industry, a change in that industry, how it will impact your industry. Welcome to the business leadership of the new digital era. And that is why you're beginning to see more and more of these business CEO roles are being filled by technology executives and not traditional business executives. Nike is just a start. I'm sure you guys have seen the Nike new CEO announcement. There was a time when investing on Industry 4.0 was an opportunity. It was an opportunity for you to move forward. It was an opportunity for you to get ahead of your competitors. That is no longer the case. Investing on Industry 4.0 is a must-do for your organization. It is a threat for your company's survival. But the question is, as senior-most leaders of your organization, what are you going to do about it? Thank you very much.